Hey friend, it's Colin from Sonic Scholar. I'm going to go out on a limb and say there is no greater enemy that every programmer faces than redundancy, aka code duplication. Code duplication lies around every dark corner, stalks every alleyway, always lurking, ready to pounce on your code base and unleash a hex storm of code that is expensive to maintain and punishing to your productivity. Not only that, but your collaborators are all unsuspecting bystanders and potential collateral damage for redundancy's misdeeds. In an earlier post in the series, I talked about why commenting code is super important, but I'd be hard-pressed to find a seasoned developer who says that keeping your code dry is somehow less important. In short, the DRY principle stands for don't repeat yourself. And while there may be a rare exception to ignore this rule, if there was a 10 commandments for programming, this easily takes number one on the list. The DRY principle isn't just about code duplication though, but it's about a philosophical mindset that will help us get rid of redundancy in everything that we do. By learning how to make your code dry, and by also adopting this mindset, not only will your code have incredibly more bang for the buck, but your business soft skills will greatly improve, helping you to find and eliminate waste in all aspects of your work. This makes you an extremely valuable engineer to have on staff. With that in mind, I want to talk about 4 key benefits to keeping your code dry. Let's discuss. Now, really quick, I want to make sure you get your hands on my 6 tips for writing excellent software guide. This is a free guide that I've put together for you. I know it's going to help you out because what we're talking about today, dry code, is only one of these tips. There are 5 other tips that I desperately wish I had some training on when I was starting out in my computer science education. Things like unit testing, version control, command line, naming conventions. I want to get these in your hands so that you can have some high impact, quick wins to fast track your software engineering skills. Get the link in the description. All right, let's dive into the meat of today's topic with benefit number 1, maintainability. This is by far the most important one, so absolutely don't skip it. In software engineering, a term that often gets thrown around is technical debt. Simply put, technical debt is the hidden cost to add features to your code base. The more maintainable your code base is, the less technical debt you have, and vice versa. Think of it like this. Let's say I want to work on a simple project in my garage. Normally, the project should only take 15 minutes. But the cluttered and disorganized state of my garage means that I have to spend extra time searching for tools, materials, and dealing with other unexpected issues that arise as a result of all the chaos. These things are the hidden costs of working in a cluttered and disorganized space, and they're frustrating and time-consuming to deal with in a code base. So what does all this have to do with dry code? Well, in my experience, redundancy in a code base is the biggest culprit of technical debt, and it's the most damaging over the long term. Similar to how interest generates in a snowball-like fashion when debt payments are missed, the hidden costs of technical debt increase exponentially over time. So make your code as dry as you can right from the start. And if you have the opportunity to dry out somebody else's code, do it. And you'll be well on your way to keeping the code base that you're responsible for very maintainable. Benefit number 2, reusability. In software, it's much better to write the code once so you can reuse it a bunch later on. Going back to my garage analogy, how absurd would it be for me to go to the hardware store and buy a new set of wrenches every time I needed to tighten down a nut? Every time I needed to pound a nail, I go and buy a new hammer. It's incredibly wasteful. I'd end up with a bunch of tools all over my house that I don't need, and my wife would probably kill me. In coding, I think we get away with this kind of behavior because copy-paste shortcuts are so easy. We don't really feel the pain of creating repeated code because we just have the code tucked away in our paste buffer, ready to use at a moment's notice. This mindset is just plain laziness. Now, I'll be the first to say I love copy-paste and I'm not advocating that we don't use it. But imagine if every time we copy-pasted a couple lines of code that should go in its own function, what if we felt the pain of the time and energy and the money that it is to drive to Lowe's and buy a new set of tools? I bet our code would become much drier in a heartbeat. Did you know that the first coders in Fortran actually had to punch physical holes into paper and feed it into a machine to run it? It was an astronomical waste of paper, yes, but I'd be curious to see how dry their code was. Next point, benefit 3, readability. A code base that doesn't have a bunch of repetition helps other developers read and understand the code much more efficiently. Not only because there are fewer lines of code, although that's certainly a big help, but drier code tends to break out code that has a high potential to be repeated into highly reusable functions and modules. We just talked about this in the last point. This kind of code ends up being much easier to understand in small chunks at a time. Dry code saves time and money by reducing the hidden costs of wasting time trying to figure out what the heck is going on in the existing code base, and improving the overall readability and discoverability. Benefit number 4, testability. Code that isn't dry can make for a challenging time testing. This is because dry code, again, tends to be more reusable. You're seeing a pattern here. When code is separated out into logical units, it becomes much easier to test these logical units of code on their own. What this means is that writing unit tests become much simpler, and integration and functional testing gives you a much higher degree of confidence that your code base is stable. Dry out your code, and the sometimes monotonous but very necessary task of testing will become much more enjoyable to you. There you have it. 4 reasons why you should always keep your code dry. You'll write more maintainable, reusable, readable, and testable code. Now I know this was high level and a bit philosophical, but it's important that we start here because, as I said in the beginning, the dry principle is a mindset that we have to adopt and live by if we want to be successful engineers and streamline everything we do in the workplace. I hope this has been helpful to you, and you feel like this has been a fresh kick in the pants to not be lazy in front of the keyboard, and that you're excited to keep fighting the good fight and write dry code. Now remember to get the free guide I put together for you. This is my top 6 best practices every coder should have and they should live by. Invest in yourself, pick up these tips, and watch what happens to your confidence and productivity in writing code. Go to www.sonicscholar.com/6tips or click the link in the description below and get your free copy. Thanks, friend, for watching. Do me a favor in the comments and let me know which of the key benefits of writing dry code was most striking to you, and what's one thing that you'll do to help make your code drier. Hit the like and subscribe button if you find content like this helpful, and I'll see you in another video soon.